We're going to start by introducing ourselves. My name's Zoe Jones. I'm a second year farm operations management student with a crop emphasis, and currently I work on a farm in Hector, and my plans after graduation is to continue work there and possibly start my own operation.
Hi, I'm Ethan Beaudry. I'm from Albertville, Minnesota. I'm studying here at Ridgewater for my farm operations and management diploma with a dairy emphasis, and my hope is to go back home and farm after college.
And I'm Jared Kale. I'm from Hancock. I'm also a farm operations and management major, and my plan is to also go back to my farm once I graduate.
Today we are going to be talking about controlling pests through spraying chemicals. Does anybody know what this weed is? It starts with an animal.
Pig.
Yes, correct.
So today we're going to talk all about sprayers, all about chemicals, and how chemicals actually affect pests.
Okay, I'm going to be talking about sprayers and their operations today. If you look at our brochure, we have three different types of sprayers, three different main types of sprayers. We have 3-point sprayers that are attached to the back of a tractor. We have a pull-behind sprayer that you pull behind the tractor, and then we have a self-propelled sprayer, like the one that we have here. If you guys want to follow me down here, we're going to take a look at the sprayer a little closer. Okay, so you will notice that this sprayer has single tires on it right now. That's because we need to fit between the rows when we're spraying weeds or fungicides for the crops. And in the spring, we'll usually have duals on to reduce compaction. And for loading the sprayer, you'll load it right here. You'll put the chemical in the water, and while it's being loaded, it'll be going into this 1,200 gallon tank, and it'll be being agitated while you're loading it, because some chemicals are prone to go to the bottom of the tank. Here we have our 120-foot boom. The chemical will be pressurized through the boom system and out through the nozzles. Here's the nozzles here. This is where the spray will actually exit onto the crop or the field, whatever you're spraying for. So I'm going to talk a little bit about nozzles. Here, when we're spraying pre-emergent sprays in the spring, you want more of a larger droplet nozzle to cover the whole ground, and then when you're spraying fungicides later in the year, you'll want more of a mist nozzle so that the leaves will be covered by the spray. When you're spraying, it's very important to be aware of the weather and the temperature outside. The wind direction is very important because you don't want your chemical to be drift into the neighbor's field or anything like that, or into lakes or anything. And the temperature is also very important too, because some chemicals don't do the best job if it's too cold outside. And then also some solutions can't be rained on for 24 hours. Then there's also solutions that need to be rained on for within 24 hours in order to be incorporated into the soils. So today I shared a little bit about sprayers and their operations, and now Zoe's going to talk to us a little bit about chemicals.
Yeah, so now we're going to go through some chemicals and how to properly use these chemicals. Whenever you're working with chemicals, you should always use proper PPE, personal protective equipment. These are some common examples of some PPE you'd want to use when dealing with chemicals. It's very important to keep our bodies protected from chemicals because they can be damaging, and so that's why we use PPE. Another big thing of spraying and using chemicals is having your private or commercial pesticide applicator's license. You need this in order to buy chemical from the co-op, or if you were to work for a company like a co-op, you need your commercial license to spray chemical for them. And you can obtain this license in the spring, taking Nate's integrated pest management class. So now that we have you safe from chemicals and with the correct license, let's talk about chemicals themselves. So there's 3 main types of chemicals. There's herbicides, which control weeds, insecticides, which control insects and bugs, and fungus, which helps crops protect against fungus. And then when you're spraying, you'd add a bunch of different types of chemicals to help produce the best kill or best spray. So things like oils to help mix chemicals together, water buffering agents, water conditioning agents, anti-foam, and a bunch of other stuff to, again, produce that best spray possible. So then you have a couple different forms of these, or formulations, I should say, of these chemicals. We have, this is an example of a liquid jug of chemical. This is an example of a powder, a wettable powder. And then over here we have an example of granulated chemical. It looks like just like salt you spread on your driveway in the wintertime. and then that's an example of bulk liquid chemical. But yeah, and so then when it comes to each of these formulations of chemicals, you have a separate rate for each of these products when spraying. So that rate depends on variety, weather, pest and weed density, and I mean a bunch of other things. But just to give you a couple examples, Master Lock and Coverall here we use as a beet fungicide. And the Master Lock we sprayed at 6.4 ounces an acre, and then this Coverall we sprayed at 2 pounds an acre. And so you have your actual product rate, and then you have the actual rate that you are spraying the field at, and that would be gallons per acre. So herbicide, you spray anywhere from 18 to 20 gallons an acre, and then fungicide, you spray, 40 to 60 gallons an acre, depending on the farmer and what you're trying to do. Yeah, and then there's a lot of math involved in spraying, converting ounce rates to gallon rates and figuring out how many gallons of water you need or how much chemical or product you need in order to spray the amount of acres you need to spray. But over time it does get easier, and with a lot of practice and repetition it makes a lot more sense, and you can just kind of get cooking, spraying, and get as much done as possible in one day. But you may be wondering how this chemical gets into the sprayer. And so on the farm I work on, we have an enclosed water trailer with about 6,000 gallons of water. That's pictured here, and 3 inductors, and so I follow the sprayer all around to the different fields and I fill it and it's on its way, and it's pretty simple, but sometimes it gets complicated with a lot of chemicals, but that's Chemical 101 for pest control.
So we talked all about spraying, all about chemicals, and now I'll be talking about how the chemical actually affects the pest. So the way that the chemical affects the pest is called the mode of action. So here's some example of how the herbicide chemicals and their mode of action. So it's basically the mode of action is how it kills the pest. Now, different modes of action will actually take different amount of times to actually affect the pest. But so for example, a herbicide, you may kill a pest with a root, amino acid, growth, or pigment inhibitor. An insecticide may kill by a nervous system inhibitor, growth regulator, endotoxin. A fungicide may kill a disease with biosynthesis inhibitors, biologicals, chemicals with just multi-site activity, and so on. So another important thing to remember is rates. Now, using the incorrect rate of a pesticide could be pretty bad in multiple different ways. For example, you could just waste material, you gotta spend more money. It may be harmful to the environment, which ties back to wasting material. If you wasted some, you also might hurt it by spreading pesticides into waterways and stuff like that. A third way would be if you don't control the pests and you have to respray again, you're wasting material and so on, or damage to the target site like burning. Now, another very important thing to remember is chemical resistance in pests. So using the same chemical with the same mode of action on a pest may cause it to slowly gain resistance to that chemical, like Roundup on water hemp. Now, to combat this, it's recommended that you switch the chemical and mode of action every so often to kind of just slow this process down. So finally, pre-emergent herbicides are used to control weeds before they come out of the ground and stop them from germinating, while post-emergent herbicides are used to control the weed once it's out of the ground and slow its growth.
So to close out our presentation, I talked about sprayers and their operations. Zoe talked about chemicals, how to load a sprayer, and different PPA that you would want to use when working with chemical. And Jared talked about how the chemical actually works during pest control.
Okay, so remember we identified pigweed in the beginning. Now I have another question. Would insecticide, herbicide, or fungicide kill this weed? Anybody? Herbicide? Yes, that would be correct. Good job. Hopefully you learned something about spraying and chemical use and pest control, because it's really important and necessary to keeping away unwanted pests and keeping our fields clean. So, thank you.